Hey folks, and welcome to part 9 of Build a Practice Routine that Fits into Your Life and Makes You Better. So today we're going to talk about arguably the most important part of practicing, which is learning songs. And rather than take specific songs and show you how to play them, I'm just going to talk about a strategy you can use to learn any song, and it's the same strategy that I and many other professional musicians use to learn songs quickly and efficiently. And it's very important that you're able to apply some sort of strategy to doing that, because if you're well, everybody wants to learn songs, right? But there are certain situations where you're going to have to learn songs very quickly. And what I found is that having a strategy to do it is usually the best way to do it. So I'm going to recount a couple of stories for you just to start with, to give you some context. So my very first professional gig, I had just finished, music school, all that kind of stuff, and I was at home and I got a phone call saying, "Hey, our guitarist has injured his hand. Can you stand in for him?" I was like, "Yeah, okay, sure, great. What's the set list?" So we went through. It was just a covers band, so we went through the sort of 30 songs that these guys were doing, and what keys they were doing them in, and then I said, "Great. Well, when's the gig?" And the guy said 8 o'clock. It's like, "Today, yeah." So this was about lunchtime. I had about probably 4 to 6 hours to organize all of these songs so that I could play them at the gig in about 8 hours time. So I used the strategy I'm going to show you to get all that down. Now at this particular gig I had to read some of the songs off paper. I did say that to him. I said, well, that's kind of short notice, but I'll do my best to try and play these, and here's what I'm going to do. And I said, I'm going to have to, some of them I'll need a music stand, I'll need to read it off the page and whatnot, but it worked out fine, and I got my $50 or whatever it was at the time. But I'm going to, that particular strategy that I used then is the same strategy that I use now. Okay, so the first thing you need to do when you're learning a song is you need to know the song. You need to listen to it. Now, more often than not, especially if you're a sort of guitarist who plays for fun rather than a professional, you're going to know the song anyway. You're going to pick a song that you want to learn because you like that song, so you're going to know the song. So that's not an issue. But sometimes your guitar teacher, or maybe if you're a professional guitar player, you will be asked to learn material that you don't know for the gig. The best thing you need to do right at that point is become familiar with the actual song. So how does it go? What does it sound like? Well, what do the guitar parts sound like? All these kinds of things. Try to, as much as you can, internalize that particular song. If you go online and check out a guitarist called Greg Howe, who is amazing, he played with Michael Jackson, and there's a few interviews with him where he talks about how he got a very short notice call, like a couple of days, to learn the Michael Jackson set, and one of the main things that he did was just listening to those songs constantly so that he could internalize them. So step number 1, listen to the song, become familiar with the song. Okay, you may at first, if your guitar teacher has asked you to actually learn a song that you don't know, you may be like, "Oh, I don't really know that song, I don't care about that song." But once you start listening to it, you might realize that actually it's a great song and there's some great guitar parts in there, and you might actually end up really liking that song, and possibly the band as well. There's a reason that your guitar teacher has asked you to learn that particular song. So keep that in mind as well, that learning that song is going to really embellish your technical skills, okay, and your musical skills. So listen to the song first, okay? Right, second thing you need to do is you need to do some sort of preparation. Most people will just launch into trying to learn the song in a sort of haphazard way, But what you need to do is you need to get some materials together, prepare those materials, which will make your learning a lot easier. So go to somewhere like ultimateguitar.com, or if you have a tab book, which I have many tab books. Let's have a look. Got a whole library of tab books. Here's some Joe Satriani, the Super Colossal album, all the tabs for that. Millions of stuff. I love tab books. It's how I learned as a young student back in the 80s. If you could get the tab book, you'd go and buy it, and then you'd start learning the songs. But anyway, let's get back on track here. So what you need to do is go online and find either the chords and the lyrics. So there'll be some kind of chord sheet if you go to ultimateguitar.com and pick up whatever song you want to do. It's probably there. It's probably on a very basic level. You get the lyrics printed out, and you get the chords, usually above the word or the syllable where that chord change happens. Those are great resources. YouTube, find somebody who is teaching the song. It's great. It saves a whole lot of time because they can show you some very technical things that you maybe wouldn't realize were happening in the song. Certain fingerings or picking techniques, whatever, strumming patterns, all that kind of stuff. In this day and age, there's so many resources available that will help you to learn songs. So I recommend going and doing a little investigation, and at the very least, you can get a sort of a tabbed version or a chord sheet, something like that. So that's the next thing, is really just prepare some materials that you're going to work from. Okay, it's very rare these days that we have to just try and learn a song by ear. Usually somebody out there on in the internet world has done some of that preparation work for you, and they prepared the chords and lyrics at least. Okay. Third thing you need to do is to map the song into sections. Okay, so popular music generally has a structure, something like an intro, a verse, maybe another verse. There's going to be a chorus in there, probably another verse, another chorus, a bridge or a middle eight, maybe a guitar solo of some sort, or some kind of break for an instrumental break, and then probably back into a couple of choruses before we hit the end of the song. So you can do two things. Take any printed materials that you have, like your chord sheet and your lyrics, and take the actual recording of the song. And of course, keep in mind when you're trying to, listen to the song. Again, we live in the modern era where, if you don't have that particular song, it's available on streaming platforms. So, or YouTube. There's always resources there for you to find a recording of that song. So take your recording, take whatever materials you've managed to prepare from the internet, and start to map out some of the sections. Sometimes if you have a really good transcription of that piece of music, it's going to have sections in it. So there's a thing that we call rehearsal marks. So A, B, C, you'll sometimes see these in little capitals next to certain bits. And it's really just defining separate sections of the song. And they're called rehearsal marks because your band leader or your orchestra leader or whatever situation you're in will sometimes say, hey, let's rehearse this from section B, or let's rehearse this from section C. So that's why they're called rehearsal marks. Once you've mapped your song into sections, you can then use that to start to work on the song itself. And believe it or not, the intro, most people just crack right on and start at the very beginning, but the intro is not always the best place to start. If you learn the chords for the verse and the chorus, you've got 80% of the song right there. So that brings me on to my next thing. Start with the chords. So understanding the chord progression of the song is more or less 80% of the song learned right there. As I mentioned a minute ago, pop music has a structure, and a lot of that structure repeats. You have verses that repeat. The chords are often just repeated. The chorus chords are often just repeated, maybe with one or two modifications. So I'm going to use a song called For the Love of God by Steve Vai. It's quite an advanced song, but it doesn't matter whether you are using, what level the song is at. The strategy remains the same for learning the song, okay? This one also doesn't have lyrics. It's an instrumental. I've picked that on purpose so I can show how to learn particular instrumental parts as well. But again, if there's a vocal part or a singing part, then that's one less thing that you have to learn on the guitar. But let's look at the chord structure first of all. So it starts with E minor add 9, which is this chord. That does that's 2 bars of that. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then it goes to F major 7 sharp 11, which is 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Back to the E minor chord. Back to your F major 7. This one is perhaps voiced a little differently. And so on. So that's not actually how the rhythm guitar part of the song goes, but that is how the song, how the chord structure goes within the song. So in fact, that particular bit is arpeggiated, so it's sort of that kind of thing. So I can apply that technique to the chords once I know them. But if you take the chords and learn those, then it's giving you a whole lot of information. First of all, as I said, you've got 80% of the song down because you understand the chords, the chord progression, and where it's going. Okay, and secondly, it's going to give you a huge amount of information about what scales, arpeggios, and melodic techniques, or not techniques, melodic sort of structures and things you can use over that. Okay, so yeah, that's the next step, is really get those chords down. And in many songs, that's, as I said, that's most of the work done right there, if you can get the chords for each section down. Good. Okay, so the next thing really, which I sort of alluded to there, is what is the actual strumming pattern or rhythm part or finger picking part or whatever. Once you've got the chords down, what rhythm do you need to apply to them? Okay, so let's have a look at that. In this particular case, I'm doing arpeggios, so yeah. Okay, so there's my starting part for the intro, For the Love of God. Obviously I would need to practice that a bit more. I haven't actually practiced this one that much. I'm very familiar with the song, but I wanted to use it as a more sort of as an advanced piece. Okay, so for whatever you're learning, it might just be a simple strumming pattern. So you need to figure out what the rhythm is for that specific song that you're working on. If you're not sure, or you're maybe not quite you haven't done a lot of work with strumming patterns and things, then just to start off with, just do 4 to the bar if it's in 4/4, 3 to the bar if it's in 3. That will get you there. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Or if you have a more, if you know a little bit more advanced sort of strumming patterns and things, then use that. Okay, great. So the next thing is you want to work in sections, and you want to practice transitions. So start off with learning the verse, for example. So just take that as it is, just the verse, work on just the verse, work on getting those chords down, get them memorized, work on any strumming patterns or rhythm patterns that you need to do. And again, you're now 80 to 90% of the way there with that particular song. Then start working on the chorus, okay? So you can really just sort of take it down to bit by bit and just work on sections at a time. But of course, an important part of that is to then make sure that you practice the transition from one section to another. So if you can play the verse, great, but make sure that you can play the verse into the chorus. I see it a lot in students where they will practice one section, but they don't practice one section into another section. They know both sections very well, but the actual link between them, that they mess it up because they haven't actually practiced that link. Okay, so practicing your transitions is very important. So what about like riffs, licks and solos and things? So if we're learning guitar songs, quite often there's a catchy guitar part that's in there that isn't part of the chords necessarily, or not directly related to the chords. It's a little riff or maybe a lick, something that's really catchy that stands out, that if you want to play the song properly, you need to know that bit, right? So how do you go about learning those? Well, once you've learned your chords and you've got your strumming and things, your strumming patterns together, you can then start to work on the specific lick itself. And again, break it down into just doing specific parts. So you have to be patient here, and you have to really, when you're learning intricate riffs or intricate licks, you have to take your time and you have to study it bar by bar, but also almost note for note sometimes. It depends on how difficult that particular piece or lick, riff, solo, whatever is, and also depends on your technical ability to play such things. When I was younger, I used to try all sorts of things. I grew up in the 80s. We were listening to Van Halen, Joe Satriani, Steve Vai, all these guys. It was a great sort of era for technical guitar wizardry. So, as a young man, I was trying to learn all these really difficult things, and my personal technique in some cases really wasn't quite there in terms of being able to pull that stuff off. But it didn't stop me trying, and it shouldn't stop you trying either. But you have to be patient, and you have to work on whatever that particular lick is, slowly. And if you can't do a full bar of it or the whole solo, then work it down to doing, can I do a bar? If we can't do a bar, can I do the first couple of notes? It is helpful if you have technical knowledge and technical skill on the guitar, because quite often you can see what technique is being used in that particular lick, and you can then that will help you to learn it, because you understand that, okay, he's doing a legato thing based on perhaps a pentatonic scale, or a 3-note per string minor scale, or whatever the particular technique may be. But the main thing here is just take your time with these things and work on them slowly. So I'm going to have a go at the first couple of lines of the melody part for the love of God. Let's get some distortion here. Oh, there we go. Right. Okay, I'm pretty much sight reading this. Oops. Okay, so not perfect by any means, not terrible. The notes are recognizable. That is basically the melody. Just rhythmically, I didn't get it quite right because I was, as I say, reading it off the page. So a little practice and that comes together. So how would I practice that? Well, obviously I have a bit more technical skills so I can get bigger chunks of it. But let's just do the first lick, right? So let's see, third finger. Okay. So that very first lick, I'm just thinking about a couple of things, really. What fingers am I using? What's actually happening in that phrase? Where do my fingers need to be? He's using a slide there to get up to that 12th fret from the 10th fret. So all these sorts of things. What picking am I using? All that kind of stuff. And then from there, just lots of repetition on just that lick. So, don't play it a couple of times and then go, oh, okay, I've got it, let's move on. No, like you should do it like 25 times at least, just work on it slowly, 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 be patient, okay? Which brings me on to my next practice technique, which is being patient, okay? When you're learning songs, it might be something fairly simple. It might just be like a simple Beatles thing where you're just strumming through the chords with someone acoustically. That's fine. You can probably pick that kind of stuff up really, really quickly. But if you're having to play something more technical, like For the Love of God, or many, many different songs, some jazz pieces perhaps, the list goes on, then you're going to need to be a lot more patient trying to get some of these licks down. Keep in mind that people like Steve Vai are the sort of very top of the guitar playing pinnacle, so their stuff isn't particularly easy, and if that's something that you aspire to, be prepared to spend possibly weeks working on these pieces, maybe sometimes even years. The longer you play these things, by the way, in terms of, I don't mean like sit down and do it for 10 hours a day, for 10 years. I mean, if you did that, you'd be very good at that particular piece of music. But if you learn a piece of music, and then you keep playing it throughout your life, then you will find that, after 10 years of, playing it, every couple of days or whatever it is, sometimes, not for a few weeks or whatever, but you still, keep your hand in with it, you find that, after 10 years or so, it's much, much better than it was when you first started playing it, I often think that, the worst performance of a piece of music by the artist can be the recorded version. I mean, yes, they spend hours in the studio getting it absolutely right, but then if you record something and then you go out and tour, and you tour for 10 years, 20 years, and you're playing that song every night, you're going to really know how to play that song, and it's going to sound great. So you're going to see an artist play your favorite song that they wrote 20 years ago. They've been out on tour doing it every night. It's going to be the best version of it, probably, because they're so familiar with how to play it, and maybe they want to add little things into it and stuff like that. But familiarity is key. So I think there we go. That's my sort of strategy for learning songs. Break it down into those eight steps, and it makes learning the song easier, quicker, and also you internalize it much better if you spend the time just working on it. So many people just pick up a bit of tab and they start at the first note and they're trying to play through it that way, and quite often they'll play from the beginning and try and get all the way through to the end of the song, and they'll end up playing the whole song badly, and it'll take them about 10 minutes to get through the whole thing, when in fact, rather than spending 10 minutes playing the whole song badly, spend 10 minutes just working on a small section of it and getting that perfected. That's a bigger win than playing through something once badly. You play through something 25 times, you get it absolutely right, great. the next day that you practice it, you move on to the next section and you do that as well. So again, patience is key. You know, get your practice in. Learning songs is so much fun, and it doesn't have to be as difficult as, you know, people think, oh, I can't do that because it's technically above my head. Well, you know, take the time to work on those particular techniques and, you know, the song will come. Great. Well, that's it from me, and I will see you in the next video. Bye for now.